Hey everyone, thank you for joining me in this episode of The Kitchen, coming to you live from my kitchen. And I wanted to discuss this week some unusual uses for the food in your kitchen. Now, they're not really unusual uses. We're going to eat them, right? We're not going to do anything like totally off the rails. But sometimes I get questions of like, oh, what do you do with that ingredient? And this week in my social media pages, I've been doing a lot of talking about intermittent fasting. And then a few episodes ago, we talked about coconut oil. So I'm going to bring back the coconut oil to talk briefly about like one of the uses that I love, especially when we're talking about intermittent fasting, is bullet coffee. Now there's a whole diet, bulletproof and all of this stuff that people can follow. I happen to love bulletproof coffee. I think there's a lot of solid research around the concept and the premise, and it helps to increase your metabolic rate. It helps to blunt the release of the caffeine of the coffee, and because of the type of fat that is in the coffee, we see improved focus, acuity, and cognition in the brain. So those are all excellent. And that the type of fat, you can buy it isolated, a medium chain triglyceride, brain octane it's called is the tag name there, trendy name. Or you could just sometimes use coconut oil. You can use whatever coconut oil you want. It is mostly medium chain triglycerides. You will find the caprylic acid, which is the acid that you're looking for in that brain octane. It's probably just 100% of the caprylic acid. So you want to add that to your coffee and just blend it with any kind of smoothie blender, a bullet blender. Go figure, there's a bullet blender, right? So, or even just those like little, we have like an immersion frother. You could do that as well. So that is one use of coconut oil in your coffee, making your bulletproof coffee. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, I have these, I don't usually get these dates. These are, where are these from? These are from Tunisia. I get dates, and you can just kind of split them in half because you're gonna take out the pit that's in there. And what I like to do is I will then put a walnut or a cashew in there. And if it's a special occasion, I might even put a little piece of, a little tablespoon of goat cheese in there and squeeze it together. I might even cut that in half and then have two pieces. And that gives you a nice sweet treat. Sometimes I use those as appetizers or even just so people can like pick on something small, cutting it in half. And depending on how big, sometimes dates can be really big depending on where you get them. So I've even cut them into like 4 pieces before, and it makes like a nice little pinwheel with a walnut and the goat cheese in there. So those are some two foods, well, a couple of foods that we wouldn't normally think about. And the last one I'm going to talk about are cashews. I have some giant bag of cashews over here. So I get a giant bag because we use a lot of cashews, and plus, oddly enough, my dog is addicted to cashews. So we go through a lot of cashews here, but people just think about like, oh, I'll just grab a handful of cashews to eat or just put them in a trail mix. You can also incorporate, I make a nut and berry cereal. Many of my clients know, if you work with me, it's one of my favorite breakfasts, and I always change up the nuts. Sometimes there's cashews, almonds, walnuts, a blend of all three, and I put them with berries with a little almond milk, and it is a fantastic gluten-free, grain-free cereal that you can use. So that is another use for the cashews. I also use cashews in a lot of saute or stir-fry dishes. They cook up really nice, especially when you're using a base of coconut oil. It's a nice complement there. So you can crush them up. You can put them in salads. Very versatile. So those are some foods that I thought I would just share with you that get a little like, stayed, right? Like, oh, I'll just make some trail mix or whatever. Or I don't know what to do with this. Dates, or just eat them. So those are some great ideas for you. Hope you guys enjoy them. And thanks for tuning in for this episode of The Kitchen.